to the 40K Fireside podcast, where we discuss everything to do with competitive Warhammer 40K with your hosts Vik, Vijay and David Gaylard.
Click transition, and we should be live, LIVE. Got a little bit of a different setup. We're back, episode 71. Vik and I have both been playing this weekend. Playing some smaller events this weekend, I guess, especially for me. It was the last time I played in a event that was less than 150 players. I think might have been 2 years ago or something. So first time playing a small one for me. But yes, we are back. It's been great. Vik and I had a fun weekend playing. Lots of people playing on our Discord as well in real events, and then myself in particular, playing against people on our Discord as well. And then, yeah, everything was going great. How have you been, Vik? Everything good?
Yeah, all good, man. I'm quite liking this little setup here where we've got no visual aids in this one, guys. We're really going for the podcast theme on this one. So if you are doing something else, painting, driving, or something, this is the perfect episode to listen to because we're going to describe everything that you need to know about our tournaments and where we are with our hobby.
Yeah, it's prime if you're taking a walk in Hyde Park on a sunny day. You listen to some podcasts. A little bit of housekeeping. Once again, if you're new here, I actually ran into someone that had only just discovered our podcast in the last 3 days prior to the event, and then they realized I was at the event, and they were also a guard player. So
there you go.
That was great. And so if you are a new listener, welcome. Vik and I do this for, I guess we've done it for quite a few years now, but we talk about our competitive experience and our journey, and Vik and I have played in the highest of echelons of Warhammer 40k play. And welcome. One other housekeeping onto that, if you aren't subscribed, make sure you just click subscribe, It helps us out, of course, and consider joining the members section where Vik and I have just released deep dives into our tournament weekend, Vik playing Ynnari, myself on Mechanized Guard as well. And yeah, also on top of that, my startup has just launched for open beta. So if you do want to help support as well, you can help my business, even just providing some feedback, testing the products. It's a document and report creation workflow tool. There we go. On to it. Now, Vik, how was your weekend? Little 5-0 for you as well.
Weekend, yeah, glorious. So a couple of weeks back, I went to Sheffield, got a 7-0, and now I was at Glasshammer Major, which was actually in Solihull, which is where I live. So
yeah,
not too far away. Short drive over there, and I managed to get a 5-0 at this 100-person event with the Ynnari again. But the terrain setup completely different. Glasshammer terrain is very similar to WTC terrain, which is a nice change of pace from UKTC. I had to adapt my list quite a bit to accommodate for that terrain. How about you, Dave? How was your weekend?
Yeah, good. Had the 5-0 as well. And I think we were both playing events that were near to us, which was nice for a change. The feeling of just playing 2 rounds on Sunday and then going home, getting home at like 6 o'clock or something was really nice.
Lovely.
And just going home on Saturday night was really nice for a change. So it was nice going back and forth. But yeah, I was playing the Spicy Brew, the Mechanized Assault, and that was really good fun as well. So yeah, why don't we go through, perhaps, I've got 2 events to talk about. So should we go through my rundown, a little bit of the list beforehand?
Yeah, of course.
What kick it over to the Glasshammer Major. Nice. So I was playing, I was hoping I was going to be the only player in the world on Mechanized Guard this weekend, but there were 2 other players this weekend. Historically, a very low win rate detachment, but it's very strong. So a little bit misunderstood in that sense. But yeah, I've been taking a list that I've been practicing for a little bit, but it's a complete kind of introverted design of the way that you would think to build the detachment. It's Mechanized Guard, and if you don't know what that is, my army rule is if I disembark from a transport, I get +1 to wound, basically. But I only have 3 transports, so it's not like all my stratagems work off transports as well. So I only have 3 of these transports and a complete build around detachment. Some of the good strats are if you disembark, you can move d6 inches again. So that gives you kind of advance and charge, so to speak, right? But you can also use that after, like, I believe you can use it, or it's never came up, after you disembark as well. So you can move, disembark, move d6, and then...
That's probably what they were trying to do with that one.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. But you could just normally move 9 out, and then d6 move, and then, still perform like normal, which is really good. So I use that a lot. It just helps with the positioning. And then it's got 4 rerolls to hit and wound if you target a unit on an objective and you disembark from a transport. So that one kind of plays itself, really. go to hit your opponent's expansion, you can reasonably good with positioning, so you're pretty fast, so you can duck behind a wall, unload onto them, and then that's a really good play. And usually flip the objective there. And then you've got flat 6 reactor move on the transport as well, which usually only comes up in combat mirrors. So in the shooting games, you've got CP reroll, smoke, obviously using a lot, and then the 4 rerolls to hit whenever you can. And in the shooting matchup and the combat matchups, you're typically using reactor move a bit more there, and you don't have to use smoke obviously as much. So you don't have a powerful suite of 6 stratagems, but you have some that are really good. And yeah, I was playing a list, it'll be in the link below, but I was actually playing 3 Vanquishers, which I've been a big advocate for for a long time. And I hope the meta takes it up, because the Vanquisher is, believe it or not, just a 145-point Ballistus Dreadnought, but is legitimately better than a Ballistus Dreadnought. So I would highly recommend trying them. The Sacrilegious Vanquisher loadout, which is the 3 heavy flamers on it. Instead, the heavy flamer over the las cannon is the MVP of the list. And if you're playing against more combat, you can play 2 of those as well. It's very good. And then I've got 2 Rogal Dawns. Then I've just got like 3x3 Ogryn, 2 Chimeras of Taurox. I got Ursula Creed, which lets me do free strats and farm a CP back. So she's really good for her points. And then I've got like 20 Kaskin, 2 units of Krieg Flamers, 20 Catachan, 2 Rogal Dawns, and 2 other Vanquishers, of course, as well. So, super fun list. I think that list is very, very good. In fact, you're going to say it now. I think that list is the best guard list you can actually play.
I think there's a lot of good variations in guard. I always, those little things you get where it'll have different strengths all the way around the outside, and then like there's an area that's filled in depending on which of the strengths is good. I always imagine guard having that melee section just absolutely 0 and everything else maxed out.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's good to see you take advantage of that and get something just a little different on the table there, Dave. You've had a lot of success with that, man.
Yeah, honestly, I go into every game and I'm like, yeah, I can play against that. Like there's literally no game where I'm like, oh man, this is going to be really hard. For example, I played against Orcs on the Search and Destroy map against a great player, and I was just like, that's fine. Like he can jam me and tag me up, but I can still just disembark from my transports and shoot him. So it's got really good play all around.
I've been chatting a little bit online and asking people, what do you guys think are God's bad matchups? And people say these things, and the usual conclusion is from anyone outside of the UK that, look, you guys may have guard being really good over in your tournaments over there, but we just don't have any of that over here in America. What do you think it is, or what advice would you give to guard players to kind of elevate to the next level, Dave?
A couple of things, because it really does depend on the terrain format. I think these, we've seen a lot of success with the combined arms type lists where Nassim's been running, and a lot of people have actually, it's been really fascinating actually. I'm going to go on a tangent for just a second.
Let's do it.
So there's something to say about a comfort pick, if you know what I mean. Like Guard has this great set of detachments that you can play. You've got, Mechanized, you've got Hammer, you've got even Sieges there, you've got Recon that you can explore as well, and Bridgehead, but people have decided to comfort back to combined arms. And I think I noticed this a lot actually when I was coaching. People actually struggle to break out of their play style when they've learned something through and through, you know what I mean? And combined arms had that, that's how people would play it. And so I actually think a lot of the reflexation back to combined arms is a comfort pick, because obviously it's very strong, don't get me wrong, but it's a comfort pick there as well. And where this becomes really interesting is that the combined arms list performs significantly worse on WTC terrain, especially if you don't have board pick. The WTC boards, you can stage about 3 inches away from your opponent's expansion objective behind a ruin, right? And you can, obviously attack through ruins, and the inch-off rule doesn't work, right? And those 2 things are really important for a guard list to function, right? You need to be able to be an inch off a wall and have some distance between the staging and your expansion objective, right? Particularly in these melee matchups. And guard really suffers when you've got ruins that are hard against the board edge that you can't actually get around by any means. So I think that combined arms list really suffers a lot on those boards, which is like why I think you see those lists perform actually worse on WTC, and we don't actually see Combine doing great in Europe. In fact, the two lists that did well this weekend were Hammer of the Emperor, which is no surprise because it kind of is terrain agnostic, and I'd said for a long time I would play Hammer on WTC for singles as well.
Now,
and so that's been an interesting part
Yeah.
for me to discover, people jumping back to Combine when I think there's so much untapped potential there and everything else as well.
So the other thing people say is that it must be because of UKTC terrain, but I see a lot of similarities in terms of what works on UKTC and GW. If
Yeah.
anything, I see surely the movement pathways and the shooting lines are better in GW.
Yeah, and actually, I think the GW boards are... So the primary difference between GW boards, I would have to say, is that if you're just comparing GW and UKTC, because I've been playing on them quite a bit recently, and that's the two main audiences we'd have. In my experience, GW boards are significantly more open deployment zone to deployment zone. Significantly more open there. And the objectives on GW boards are significantly more open from any board position you want to pick. So shooting onto an objective is easier on GW boards, and shooting from deployment zone to deployment zone is easier on GW boards. I think that's just got to be a fact. If you look at whatever map layout combination you want to play, they all end up like that, in my opinion, especially if you compare them to UKTC. For example, Crucible of Battle on UKTC is pretty difficult to shoot into, right? Your expansion objective there is like a U shape that you have to, reflect your bullet 90 degrees around a corner to shoot someone into there, right?
You're forced to melee into it.
Right, exactly, yeah. And the search and destroy map is pretty tight as well, and their staging routes are quite tight as there. What I would say is that most people just get the macro strategy completely wrong. They don't understand where to place assets relative to how their opponent's placing them. They don't understand how to push and how to secure, and that's the worst thing. And so when I was playing Mechanized this weekend, it was so cruisy because my macro strategy, I'd probably say, is one of my strongest points. Like, I understand how the game should flow, where I should put my assets, and my micro might not be the best, my combat micro might not be the best or whatever, but that doesn't really matter if your macro strategy is really, really good, right? Especially if you're reading how your opponents are also playing as well, and you can take that into your macro strategy considerations. So, that's what I would say about the two terrain formats. And it is surprising that Guard isn't doing as well, particularly because like night variants are quite popular in the US as well. And I would have thought you just play 3 Vanquishes and smoke them off the board, right? Like, come on, dude. Like, what are we doing here, man? 3 Vanquishes, try it out. But yeah, it is interesting that Guard primarily does shine in the UK, and that's probably because of a couple of individuals there as well, I take it.
Yeah, though there's been a lot of success, I think, from the Guard players over on our Discord.
Yep.
And seeing people get success and kind of absorb knowledge, which there isn't too much good Guard content for people to follow out there. So I think it'll be interesting to see what impact you have on the people who are associated with you as well, Dave, because there's good stuff there.
And I would really recommend just trying the Mechanized list out. I can't sell it much more than that, mate. Any army list you go up to it, and I go, yeah, and you might say, yeah, but what if they get this unit behind a ruin here? I just go, yeah, they could probably do that, but like at least I could like move my transport, advance it, disembark my guys, poke it around, firing deck, grenade them, tank shock them after. You know what I mean? Like it's got a lot of answers to everything, and it's still playing at 20 unit count. So if your opponent has a very narrow list, you can put a bunch of the chaff in outflank, and then still do then focus on doing secondaries instead, right? So you're just going to outscore them at that point. Put your Rogue Dawn in outflank, rapid ingress and drive it onto their expansion objective for one turn, 5 of them, and then, you're ahead, you're on points, right?
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Yeah,
And your latest deep dive was on the member side is into the Mechanized Assault, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I'll do a tournament recap of that as well. But,
yeah, sweet.
Yeah, and speaking of tournament recaps, went to go play the Darksphere GT, which I would, if you're in London, I would highly recommend playing this tournament. I played it last time about 2 years ago, and I've significantly improved the terrain, the tables, the spacing, the height of the tables, the prize structure. Everything is just fantastic. So I think it goes up to 64 players on a 5-rounder, and I'd really recommend going there. I had a great time. The TO was fantastic, and everyone there was really lovely. So it was really nice. And then I got repaired round 1 because my opponent didn't show up into Ben C from our Discord as well. And
Nice.
Ben came across me, and he was going through his list, and I thought, man, that's a pretty good hammer list. I was like, man, that's pretty close to what I would play. Lo and behold, it was my list with 1 tweak in it. So that was great playing someone from the Discord. We had a great game. I managed to go first on the Dawn of War sweeping engagement, where we both decided to start everything on the board. So that was quite advantageous, to say the least. That board has that is the one UKTC map where you can shoot from deployment zone to deployment zone. And the Vanquishers and the Guard mirror matchup are very good.
Nice.
The times where you just get a Vanquisher shot through on a tank, it's just like critical amounts of damage usually.
This is it, Dave. This is the precursor to you playing Tau and getting some real railguns in there.
Hey, they hit on 4s, but if you remain stationary, you get +1 to hit, and you can hit on 2s, man. I tell you what, genuinely, in the shooting matchups, I bank CP to CP reroll the hit like almost every turn. Almost every turn. I'm just like, what more have I got better to invest into? Beautiful. I'll just re-roll a railgun. And then, round after that, I played against Tyranids, which was really fun. That was on Crucible Battle, I want to say. Yeah, he was playing a couple of Rupture Fexes and the Hive Tyrant and stuff. That was a good example of a list that was quite narrow. So I had quite a lot of play all the way across the board. And you know what, Vik? I'll sell it even more. The Mechanized list is very fast. If you go first, you scout move your transport 6. You then can move 13 and disembark, and then move D6.
Oh.
So you can move 19 inches, you can move 22 inches, and then do something with your Cask unit after that, or your Flamer unit, right? You can dump something straight in there turn 1.
Basically,
and it can really catch people off. Yeah, basically warp spiders. Yeah. And you know what's cool is on some of these boards, you can disembark onto a terrain plate and have your Chimera still behind the terrain, and then disembark your casket and shoot. And then when they move, you can reactive move your Chimera back 6 inches. So it's harder to charge, and then you can next turn put your Ogryn in there, and then firing deck with 4 rerolls, bolters and stuff like that, and then you can just like tank shock people and stuff. So yeah, it's cool. And then round 3, I played against the new Custodes detachment, the Lions one. That's quite good, that detachment. My opponent luckily didn't have any wardens, but so he didn't have any wardens, but he had the guard instead, and I was able to. The Rogaldorn was quite good against anything that's not a warden, just because it's flat 3. So naturally, you're forcing a lot of saves at flat 3, and you can get through them. But the reactive move we were chatting about after the game, and I was mentioning that I think you should have abused the reactive move on the Calidus Grav tanks, which is quite powerful because when you shoot them, they can move D6.
Yep.
So you can potentially like poke around the corner, shoot like with 4 las cannon shots, twin linked, and then, D6 reactive it back, et cetera, which is, you do need like a 3 on the reactive move because it has like, it's got a funny oval shaped base, but potentially quite powerful. It's quite a cool army list, that one.
Yeah.
And then what do we have after that? Oh, yes, and I played a guy called Vincent Stein, I believe his name is. I'm going to just double check here. On Warhorde. And that was an interesting game. It was on Search and Destroy. Not to mention, when I played the Custodes player, there was hidden supplies. So there were 2 extra objectives in the middle of the board. And my army basically just like gets double damage when you're on an objective. So I used my 4 rolls to hit, and we were like 5 times that game. It was kind of brutal. But yeah, then I played Warhorde, and Vincent Stein from Team Sigil, who are a team that have gotten a lot better in the UK here. They're putting a lot of time and effort. Played it very, very well. And Search and Destroy for UKTC is very close together. So Warhorde, definitely an army that can get in your face. We had a really technical game there, which was a really blast. I went first, which is a huge it's a very good thing for me because I get the whole board positioning. And basically whatever he comes out to stage, I can move block on turn 1, and then I can start chipping stuff off and then not give him ability to flip my objectives. But despite that, I was drawing terrible secondaries, and he was drawing great secondaries. It was still really a game until turn 3. But I did the classic move of I would swamp an area, and I know I did this against Vik as well. I would push hard on one side and then aim to table my opponent and have the Rogel Dawns where they can move 10 inches and touch the middle objective at the end of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And then your opponent doesn't have enough stuff to even score the end game primary, which they would make up for. And that's a really powerful way to play, I find, with the Rogel Dawns.
Nice.
And then last game, I was playing against Ultramarines Vanguard, though, so it was a bit different.
Oh, spicy.
Still
in action?
Yeah, he had the 6-man unit of Inceptors. The rest of it was pretty standard after that, I would say.
They've lost the Centurion devs deep striking thing now, right?
Right, exactly, yeah. So I think he would kind of replace the Inceptors with that, so to speak. But yeah, that was a good lesson in the fact that Vanguard's very fast, because he decided to start the Inceptors on the board, and I could have a turn where I move, disembark, charge, and then get within 3 of them, so then you can't uppy downy them. And I actually managed to lock the Inceptors down the whole game with my transports and units just coming out onto his deployment zone.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I kept the pressure up, kept the tempo up. Man, Oath of Moments and Vindicators is, that's...
It's very consistent.
That's a lot of damage, man.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a great game as well. It was nice. So I played basically, Meta Guard, Meta Tyranids, for Invasion Fleet, and then I played the Meta Line list, sort of, and then I played, Great Warhorde list, and then I played Ultramarines after that. So
a big mix.
Yeah, it was quite a fun round, to try everything out there. So I was very pleasantly surprised, and I came away from the tournament still trying to figure out what I would change in the list, but it's just so tidy on the points that it's really hard. I have 75 points for the last Krieg Flamer unit, but I just can't see the upgrade anyway. I just I can't think about where I would change it.
Nice.
Stuff, yeah.
You don't have to waste any time fiddling around with that. That is a solid list concept.
Submit the same thing again.
So you're going to go to the next Dark Sphere then next month?
Yeah, it's next month, and yes, if I get enough time to get out, which should be possible, I will be there next month. So that'd be great. It'd be cool if we get the other Ignite guys along as well. There's obviously a lot of strong players in London too, so it could be a really tough tournament if a lot of really solid people come.
Very spicy.
Yeah, nice. Enough about me. I've been monologuing. Ynnari.
Ynnari. Okay, so
still OP, is it?
Still. Now I've got used to it, Dave. My joke for the weekend was, I understand what I'm doing now, so the headache is only for my opponent. So my Ynnari list, I tweaked it a little bit. So this terrain format's heavy terrain, very melee favored. We've got the WTC charging rules where if you're, within an inch away from the wall, I can charge through the wall and contact you. So melee is really nicely favored in this. What was also interesting was the spacing between the terrain was a little closer than in UKTC. Sometimes in UKTC, it can feel like you have a long distance to cover to actually get to your opponent's expansion through this kind of dead space. On this terrain, not so. And it's kind of similar to WTC in that sense. There's a German WTC player called Matthias Bellman. Now, Matt Bellman, he has been messaging me back and forth. We were talking about Sisters before, and now we were talking about Ynnari and kind of sharing our ideas. And he kind of had been chatting with me for quite a while about Swooping Hawks. And I'd been back and forth. I tried a few units of 2 Swooping Hawks. I didn't really like them. He shared a video where he was using kind of 30 Swooping Hawks against Blood Angels on his YouTube channel. So I watched this whole battle in German.
Dedication.
just to see how exactly the movement and everything is. And I went away, thought about it, put it on TTS. The Glasshammer terrain's there on TTS. And actually, for 170 points, the units of 10 Swooping Hawks are probably one of the best units in the Eldar Codex. But only if you can move them safely from one position to another and activate them. On UKTC, you can't do that. 16 inches of movement actually gets you into the middle of nowhere, not able to see around ruins. But on WTC and on this Glasshammer terrain, 16 inches of movement, which is the 14-inch base plus 2-inch movement, allows you to get, from the token, allows you to get just around the ruins and attack any objective on the board. That means that you can go shoot the upgraded Exarch's weapon, which is the Hawk's Talon, the non-assault weapon, shoot all of the normal guns, throw your grenades, and charge as well. You can create incredible disruption with this unit. It's good into all profiles, infantry, vehicles, elite stuff. It's just incredibly useful across the game if you can start it on the board and safely use it.
But I thought these last time I saw Swooping Hawks, I thought they were like just 3 shots at strength 5 or something like that. What's changed with them?
It's 4 shots at strength 4. So
Okay.
it's the same as it was before. The output profile is not significantly changed. They have lethal hits built in,
Okay.
but Eldar is kind of like building blocks so that you have tools for certain defensive profiles. In my previous list, I had Wind Riders, which were a direct anti-infantry answer. Now I have 20 Hawks, which are a direct anti-infantry answer.
I
But the
see.
Hawks are a little more versatile into every other target. The big thing that's changed is that instead of being uppy downy like they were before, when they end a move within 8 of an enemy unit, they can roll a dice for each model in the unit. On a 4+, you take a mortal wound. And that's to
Jeez.
a maximum of 6. That is not restricted by throwing it into engagement range. So you can knock yourself out of combat with it. And it's also not restricted by a fallback move. So you can fall back and throw the grenades as well. So there's no
Nice.
restrictions on it. You can advance, fallback move, and throw the grenades. And it's a very consistent 5 mortal wounds, really, I found. So extremely useful. Now, the list is built around these 20 Hawks. The rest of the list, I've taken 3 units of Banshees with Autox. I've still got the Ivrain Brick with 10 Incubi and the Visarch as well. So that gives me 4 Fight First units. I've still got my 10 Brick of Dark Reapers, which again is a versatile anti-tank, anti-infantry unit. And I've got another little unit of 5 Dark Reapers. We've got a unit of 5 Corsairs for the backfield objective and a unit of 5 Rangers playing forward. And then there's a Wave Serpent with 1 unit of Fire Dragons. So the thing which has had to get reduced here is the Fire Dragons.
Now, but you have a bit more consistent anti-tank now, right? Because if the Swooping Hawks, you can just move 5. You can move your distance, grenade for 5, and then grenade for 3, which is 8 mortal wounds.
They can't throw actual grenades if they use their Swooping Hawk grenade packs, but you do have other stuff which can throw grenades. So you're absolutely right. You can do about 8 mortal wounds to a target very consistently.
Yeah. Doesn't matter if it's a 2-up save or a 3-up save, right? Which is a big problem for Dark Reapers sometimes, right? If it's toughness 10 or toughness 11, for example, right?
And if you have AOC as well, So the Dark Reaper Brick is great because Ynnari has a lethal hit stratagem, so you can use 2 flips to turn 2 failed hits into 6s, which is a very consistent way of pushing through Dark Reaper damage, at least the first time you use them. So between all of this, it looks like, because I have less Fire Dragons, there's a distinct lack of anti-tank. But the theory is you can combine damage a lot better to deal with heavy targets. Now, this tournament was a perfect example of that because pretty much every game I played against a stat check except for one of them. So it was a good test of this. And on the members side, I did a video called Ynnari, How to Deal with Big Stuff. And it's talking about exactly how this list is used to combine damage to deal with big targets. But I'm going to do a tournament recap here for everyone.
So, quick question. If you have 2 units of Swooping Hawks, you can bomb one side. You can bomb the same unit twice, right?
Correct.
Like you can move both of them and just be like 10 mortal wounds.
Yeah, absolutely.
On a big thing.
Yeah.
Okay,
and you only need 1 model to be within 8 inches of the enemy unit.
Right.
And then the whole unit count is used.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds OP, but they are reasonably expensive for 10, right? Like, it's not like this is a cheap unit.
Oh, absolutely. And they're made of tissue paper. Like, you look at it and the entire unit just disintegrates. They only have a 4-up save base.
Yeah. I see, right, yeah. So if I overwatch you, do you still get to bomb based on your number of units, do you think?
Correct. So...
because it's player phase, you can...
Exactly. So I would sequence the grenades before the overwatch is resolved.
Okay, yeah.
So nice, handy little piece. But
nice.
It's also very helpful just having a 10 OC unit that moves that fast. It comes up a lot, especially with lethal intent on Ynnari. It's a very good way of flipping primary or maintaining your own primary.
If you're playing one of those close games and your opponent just leaves 7 OC on their objective, you're like, well, it's a close game. 5 points is probably just going to eke me out the game. Just sacrifice a whole unit to get it.
Absolutely. And I've also found with the larger bricks in Ynnari, it makes use of some of the stratagems really well. There's a -1 to wound stratagem. And there's also another stratagem where if you've lost a model in the shooting phase, you can shoot back at the end of the shooting phase as if it was your shooting phase. So you just get a free shoot into any target you want. It's very powerful on the 10 Dark Reapers and also the 10 Swooping Hawks. And then obviously you've got your reactive moves. It's a little different to the Wind Riders and the Dark Reapers because the Swooping Hawks are active units that are played through the middle of the board, which is much less passive, much more active. So in this tournament, I felt like I just had more stuff playing the game.
You can like move block with them, like you can like grenade something, move block, maybe 4 OC on objective to out OC to tie someone, and you're achieving like 3 things there. Whereas previously you'd have to use 3 units to do that, right?
Exactly. My strategy is also developed a little bit because I realized that if Ynnari's too active on the first few turns of the game, they do have a little bit of an issue with running out of resources by the end.
Yep.
But across a 3-turn game, I don't know if you've ever noticed this in any Eldar games you've seen. After the first 3 turns, it feels like, oh my gosh, how do you ever beat Eldar? Eldar look absolutely busted. But then in the last few turns, they just start sort of collapse.
Yep.
The
For
way
sure.
around that I found is that if you're extremely defensive as much as possible for the first 2 turns and then expend your resources across the last 3 turns, you really feel like you have every trick up your sleeve. And
Yep.
things like the swooping hawks are very good at slowing down the game to allow you to play like that.
Yep. And one of the tricks is, of course, is how you can make Eldari like play the game as fast as possible, really, isn't it? Because then they
Exactly.
start bleeding faster, and then you need to put pressure on them in ways that force them to commit to use units early on, so they can't
100%.
just play a 3-turn, 2-turn game and then get everything they want. Like if you're not, pressuring their expansion and holding yours and maybe the middle, then they've got no reason to come out. So like that's the way to get an upper foot on it usually.
So, one advice I'd give to anyone playing Ynnari, the thing that Ynnari hates the most, this is the secret sauce here. The thing that they hate the most is if you put like 12 OC on your expansion objective. That's what they hate. My first 2 rounds here against lovely people, Charlie and Christian, they both played Ultramarines Gladius. Now, they both had pretty much the same list here with 3 Ballistic Dreads, 2 Vindicators, Guilliman, Calgar. I think Christian didn't have Calgar, but he had a Repulsor Executioner and some Blade Guard with a Judicia. So a little bit of an interesting thing. Get the
Yep.
fight first in there. Now, both of them use the Ballistic Dreads a little more sparingly. They were like, okay, let me put 1 onto my expansion objective. Let me tuck in and cover all these firing lines. Putting 1 Ballistic Dread is fine. It forces me to expend a unit. Putting 3 Ballistic Dreads on your expansion objective is, I can't deal with you now. There you go. The complete way the game plays is completely changed as soon as you go over 10 OC against Eldar. So make sure you guys chuck loads of OC across at least 2 units onto your expansion objective versus Eldar and see how much they struggle to manage that.
Good break point. Yep. You create the triangle of doom, the 3 Ballistic Dreadnoughts.
Beautiful. If you can, you should. So, yeah, I played these 2 games against Ultramarines Gladius. Now, that game is, in my opinion, it's slightly favored to Ynnari, but it's actually quite close if everything kind of goes correctly in terms of macro strategy. But in order for that to be the case, opponents need to be experienced playing against Ynnari.
Yep.
One thing that I've noticed is that there are still a lot of people who haven't played against Ynnari, but more and more top players are starting to get lots of reps into Ynnari now. So they're starting to get worked out a little bit at the top levels. But in this situation, we have a couple of people who, been playing for a few years, getting into the game, and they're playing Ynnari for the first time and falling into the traps of Ynnari. Charlie, Christian, if you're listening to this, make sure that you put lots of OC on your expansion objective. That would be the only change I'd recommend from our games.
Nice.
Now, round 3 was against Kyle Grundy with his Tau. He brought Ret Cadre. And, me and Kyle always have a very tactical, close game. So Kyle played this really beautifully.
I've got to assume that Ynnari's pretty good against Tau, right?
Yeah. Actually, Ynnari's single best matchup, in my opinion, is Tau. Non-crew Tau. Because it's the profiles line up beautifully into Tau, and also Tau just only have shooting, so they're going to trigger lethal intent all over the place. So even just 1 ranger on the middle objective, it's like, okay, you're going to have chaff for a while, but as soon as you run out of chaff, that 1 ranger is going to be such a pain to deal with. So this game kind of played out like that. At some point, I just kind of screened my backfield for 6 inches for 3 turns until Kyle he had almost 1,000 points of reserves in place. The reserves come in a suboptimal position, and then now I'm playing a 3-turn game. So perfectly fine from there. Saying that, Kyle played it really beautifully and very tight. So the score was only a 14-6 win here, which is really, really good. If you go to WTC and the Tau player gets 6 points off of Ynnari, that is a very good outcome. So good job, Kyle.
Do you think Ynnari still suffers from that strategy of playing for a loss and just simply refusing to engage with you? Like just never coming across your side of the board. You know what I mean?
I do think Ynnari almost always wins that particular sequence.
Of course, they always win it, but like if you're aiming to get 8 points, for example,
Yes,
you know,
yes. I think if you play it correctly, you can always get some points out of Ynnari.
and is the best way of that either if you play with an army that just gets hard countered by them, is it the same as like T Suns and WTC? You know, just like don't leave, stay behind the ruins the whole time, right? Just like
Yeah,
don't come out and do anything.
you have to go into the game thinking, are you a person that wants to beat Ynnari, or are you a person that doesn't want to lose against Ynnari? If you want to beat them, I think you have to be a bit more aggressive than you think you should be. And
For sure,
if you
yeah.
don't want to lose, you should be a little more defensive than you think you should be.
Mm,
The longer you can hold on to resources for primary denial against Ynnari, the more you can keep their score down as the game goes on. And
mm,
if you really lock down your expansion as well, Ynnari can struggle a little bit to get across the board and commit enough to
mm.
do damage unless they without running out of resources at the end of the game.
Yep.
Um,
Nice.
Round four, I also played against Nids Invasion Fleet. I played
Cool.
against one of the Bulgarian WTC players.
Awesome.
So Christoph, he's a really,
Those
really
guys are
nice
always
guy.
super cool.
He
Yeah.
was so cool, but he really wanted this data because he'd been playing Ynnari multiple times,
Hmm.
and he really wanted to work out. He only plays Tyranid, so he wanted to work out how he could make the Tyranid versus Ynnari matchup as positive as possible for him.
Okay.
This is a very interesting matchup because in our Discord, a lot of people have some problems with this Tyranid monster
Yeah,
list.
I was. Oh, okay. It was a heavy monsters, was it? Because I
Uh,
was going to say Tyranids have a good range of
hmm.
roles, so I could see them having some good things against Ynnari. I feel.
This is
You
the
know.
best Tyranid invasion fleet list I've ever seen, actually.
Okay. Nice.
Because this was 3 Exocrines, 2 Tyrannofaxes, not standard, one
Yep.
Malscepter Hive Tyrant standard. The thing that he had, which was different, was he had 50 Gaunts
Okay.
and the Gene Stealer brick. So
Hmm.
he actually had a lot of mission play here.
And would you say Gaunts, Homer Gaunts, or
Yeah, I think
Termagants?
he had 2 bricks of Hormagaunts
Yep.
and 1 unit of 10 Termagaunts,
Okay.
something like
Okay.
that. Some combination that
And
he's never.
he had like a lictor or something like that as well.
Yes, he had a couple of
Something like that.
lictors
Yeah.
as well. So great list. And actually, looking at this on paper, I was like, oh gosh, I've got
It's
one
thick.
unit of fire dragons, mate. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
there's
Yep.
there's a lot of stuff to get through. But actually, 3+ armor save stuff, any
Mm,
kind of vehicles and monsters, I'm much better into compared to the Tyrannofexes. So his
mm.
deployment was beautiful. He put the Tyrannofexes forward, aggressive in the open, and the
Yeah.
Exocrines all tucked in behind it.
Mm,
Um, now, Christoph wanted to try in this game to be more aggressive. He wanted to
mm,
win the game. So he'd already tried being passive against Ynnari and found he ended up with a small loss. So he wanted to be really aggressive. So come his turn, he essentially just pushed everything forward.
mhm.
All of the gaunts were exposed. Both of the Tyrannofexes were on objectives, and the Exocrines were covering firing lines behind it. Now, we had a lot of discussion about this because actually, I think if he slowed it down a little bit here and just gave me Tyrannofexes and 1 unit of Gaunts, there's an entire second wave of stuff there that would have really hampered my scoring.
Mhm.
Um, but, you know, I feel like he'd already tried that strategy and it hadn't worked, so he didn't want to implement that against me. The
Okay. Yeah.
terrain was very favorable for him as well.
Okay.
And also he went second, so everything was very favorable for him here.
Mm.
So it was
I've,
interesting.
the Tyrannofix is an interesting one, isn't it? Because like it's kind of the ideal profile just to soak damage against Eldar, right?
Oh,
Like
beautiful.
you
Yeah.
either just have to ignore it, or you're like, okay, I'm going to commit like 3 units,
Mhm.
like one Reaper squad, at least a Hawk unit, and another grenade unit that's probably going to charge it on top of that.
Mhm.
I mean, that's if you're dealing at 18 wounds, right? Or it's
Yep.
going to be like 24 because it's going to have a feel no pain, right? So yeah, that's an interesting one.
Yeah, so he threat saturated me, and this is the only game where I ended up having to go all in turn two. I put every single one of my models out in the open to do some damage here, and I managed to get the little swings in my favor.
Mm.
Tyrannofex died, 2 Exocrines died, every single Gaunt died,
Yep.
and from there it was just a matter of just playing the game a little bit, and we ended up with a 16-4 win.
Yeah, that the Tyranid invasion list I found does often look a lot better on paper, but as soon as it
Mhm.
loses 1 or 2 assets, I found in my game as well, I was like, it is a list that actually needs like 2 to 3 things to kill something, and as soon as you like drop lower than that, it really kind of struggles to get going again. Just my experience with it, at least.
It's one of those lists where you a lot of your stuff is really focused around one unit being good. This one unit can advance and shoot. This one unit can get the 5 of Feel No Pain.
Yeah.
But almost the playstyle encourages you to use more than one unit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
So
and you know, it got hit by the big nerf where you can't double up the strat, which was the 5 up Feel No Pain, right? So that's why Invasion Fleet used to be quite good. I would be a big proponent actually, especially in this meta. I would play the Synaptic Nexus build that something similar to what Innes Wilson played at WTC a year ago with the 3 Morlocks, maybe 2 Morlocks. Imagine I was testing it with 2 Morlocks for a while, but imagine playing 2 to 3 Morlocks against Eldari, you know, or Ynnari, right? Just like drop it in, mortal wound, you know, like it's actually quite good.
the Morlocks
And
are
like,
good. They are.
and the grenade strat's very good with the battle shock. You know, you can battle shock a little aspect squad, and then on 3+ you grenade them on 6 dice. Like that's a serious amount of damage there, and you get a reasonable amount of fight first there as well, which is actually, and the fight first units can actually just kill, you know, 5 aspect warriors, which is kind of where you want to be at. So I would, just my opinion, if you're looking for a good Tyranid build out there, especially for teams, I would maybe look at that build, because if you could figure out a Tyranid build that can be very good against Ynnari, maybe in Synaptic Nexus, maybe, then I think you'd be onto something there.
Yeah.
I think that build is.
Spicy.
I've just seen Invasion Fleet go down and down and down, so I think maybe it's time to start experimenting with some other stuff. I know people are playing Vanguard Onslaught as well. It's actually gotten more popular now. In fact, I think that's the main build which people play, and I think that's because of the nerf that Invasion Fleet got with the no double 5 up Feel No Brain. Yeah. Anyway,
nice.
Round 5.
Round 5 was against Imperial Knights. I was playing against Tim. Came in with his
Knights have
tabletop
gotten more
tactics
popular.
shit. Yes, yeah. Knights are really popular at the moment. They're very good as well. So
And
Tim's
what was he
obviously
playing?
he's come to 4-0, and he's got Canis Rex and Atropos, which is one of the big
Okay,
knights.
Atropos, yep.
And he's got 7 little knights here, mixture of Alvarins and Armigers, and he's got 2 assassins. So he's got Calidus and a Colexus. Interestingly,
Colexus.
watch out your brain.
Is that the zoomy one?
No, Colexus is the one that can drop in within 6, and it's the anti-psycho one.
Oh,
So that one forced your brain into the incubi break. Right? Normally against knights, I like to keep your brain detached and just on her own, which is fine. It was what it was. But the Colexus was a cool touch. It also has a little battle shock aura, quite cool, quite funky.
Assassins are cool.
So this was an interesting one because this is a proper macro strategy game. Now, this game on the members deep dive, I did put it on TTS and went through every single turn to show this. But the overall thing was, I had 1 unit of fire dragons. The fire dragons are the only thing that really put a dent into the big knights here. And my win condition in this game is if the fire dragons get to shoot more than once into big knights, I'll win. And I managed to get it so that the fire dragons moved into the only safe space on the board, forced the opponent to touch that ruin with the big knight, and shot the fire dragons once, shot them again, managed to shoot them a 3rd time, and they survived the whole game. So fire dragons, that 1 unit of fire dragons survived the entire game.
It's not how many you have, it's how you use them.
Exactly. Beautiful. But yeah, this game really showed me that the output is there against vehicles. You know, you mentioned it, you know, with the grenades and normal grenades. You can mostly kill an Armiger, and then the Howling Banshee Autarch units are not bad. You know, they can do 8 damage to an Armiger as well between combat, shooting, and grenades. So there's enough output there, and you have the speed to apply the damage where you need. So a lot of people...
And I imagine like Dark Reapers can just shoot all the way downstream for basically the whole game there, right?
Yeah. I mean, the firing lines aren't as good as UKTC, but they're certainly not bad because knights like touching ruins and stuff like that. So,
well, the Glasshammer plays with terrain plates on everything as well, right?
Exactly.
So if you're like on the ruin and it has the 2nd floor that's windows open, you can basically shoot them, I presume, right?
Yeah, I mean, to be on a lot of the objectives, you have to actually be touching inside of a ruin. Right. So these knights stick up over the walls as well. So the Dark Reapers, massive value. They're swingy though. Sometimes, you know, 2 of them can shoot and do 6 damage, and then 10 of them can shoot and do 0. So it is what it is. But they add up across the game. But yeah, this was awesome. A lot of people really struggle into knights with Eldar. Probably Chaos Knights more than Imperial Knights, but also Imperial Knights. But yeah, if you structure your list correctly, you can get a lot of output out of it. And you know, this list got the 20-0 versus the Imperial Knights.
Ooh, big 20. That's nice. That's a good one. The it's Imperial Knights is an interesting one, isn't it? It's been interesting to see their competitive arc over the last 6 months. I think kind of regain in popularity here as kind of armies in the meta have changed. And I think probably at the lower level, Imperial Knights do quite well against Ynnari in a lot of degrees, don't they? But the higher up you get, the more things you can use to beat them. And I think it's a good example of the swooping hawks where you can kind of like cover multiple bases at the same time, right? Of your output profile. So it's kind of like Kaskin as well. Like if you run Kaskin with volley guns, you've got anti-infantry, but then you have the Meltwine and grenades. So like you're still going to get the anti-tank on the side. So if you run a couple of them, then your output, like your offensive profiles, look pretty good into a lot of different things. And that's exactly what happened with the Hawks, right? As well, you just if you ever get a turn where you just you get to use them twice as well, right? It's just over 2 turns, grenade you again.
Exactly. I started with 3 units of Fire Dragons. The Fire Dragons are the only thing in there that are only good versus one target, which is monsters and vehicles. Howling Banshees, the Incubi Brick, the Hawks, they all are good into every single type of target. Elites, infantry, and vehicles and monsters. That's added a lot more output to the list, which is very deceptive when you look at the list as well.
You don't see it, and then all of a sudden the Hawks are in your face, and they can just move very far. If you get lethal intent with them, they can move 30 inches, right, or 32.
Yeah, there's a constant
dump 10
threat.
OC.
Yeah,
so the move block of them is really good too. Just a 10-man Hawk unit as well, right?
Yep, buys you loads of time for only 170 points.
Yeah, nice. That's cool. It's cool to see the Ynnari list kind of change over time, right? Because obviously there was that kind of straightforward aspect of, you want anti-tank, you put Fire Dragons in, right? So it's been cool to see that develop.
I actually think the Fire Dragons, controversial, but I feel like 1 is the correct number. 1 used correctly, not as a trade piece, but as a carefully used scalpel that just removes this vehicle in a safe position just when you need it. Otherwise, you are just better off going wide with stuff that's good into everything.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And I think that's also where we see some Ynnari players struggle, is that they do build their lists that aren't good enough into enough things, and they hit one matchup and it's like, well, okay, I can't deal with that, Okay, that's a problem, right? So yeah. Nice. Awesome, man. Sweet. Well, have you got an event coming up next month or?
So no, I haven't got anything booked in at the moment because, I haven't got anything booked in, but also I am quite excited with 40K because it is chaos time.
Ooh.
There is so much chaos happening.
You were just itching to play Emperor's Children, I bet.
Oh my God, there's Emperor's Children, there's Thousand Suns, even CSM is looking appealing to me at the moment, mate. Ooh. So, there's a lot of stuff there, and I might have my head turned a little bit towards chaos in the
Let me ask you a question. Should CSM be allowed to take Emperor's Children, Noise Marines?
Noise Marines, absolutely not.
That is the dumbest thing if that happens.
So I understand it from a lore perspective, but Noise Marines, their role has changed so much. They're not the battle line units for Emperor's Children. They're their elite units. They're like the 8th bound of Emperor's Children. And I even said that to some people. I was like, guys, they're the 8th bound equivalent, essentially. And people are like, no, they're not. That's stupid. That's not right. But
they're also insanely good.
Noise Marines are really, really good in CSM. And, I would either like to see their points be higher if they're taken in CSM, or CSM get access to their battle line. At the moment, they can use Rubric Marines, Plague Marines, Berserkers, which are all the battle line units of the legions. But they should really get the battle line unit of Emperor's Children, not the elite unit.
Infractors, is it?
Infractors or Tormentors, one of them. Tormentors. Maybe even give them both.
That would make sense, yeah. Just have the battle lines for each one.
Infractors would be the one I would go for. Tormentors would actually be very strong in CSM, but Noise Marines are near broken in CSM. So
get some Noise Marines and put them in CSM Raiders.
Renegade Raiders, yeah.
Oh, builds itself again.
Well, we'll see, because the Codex is going to be out very shortly. So we'll see how they manage
because that would be
situation.
A change on the. Yeah, where would that change lie? Would that be that would be an errata, I guess, in the CSM Codex, probably, right? Yeah, interesting. Interesting.
Or they could leave it untouched, in which case it's legal, completely legal to take Noise Marines.
Oh, really? Is that how it works?
Yeah, it's literally written Noise Marines in.
I see, because of the existing index. That's why, of course, right? I see. Okay, that makes sense now. The one thing I was going to say is, do you know when the Thousand Suns Codex is coming out?
No, they did say it's all in May.
Okay.
I think. We've got World Eaters and Death Guard preview, which came out today. So I think Thousand Suns is coming right alongside them. So it should
That
be. It should
sounds
be
like
okay.
a Thousand Suns masterclass, mate.
Oh,
I'm going to be getting
fantastic!
ahead on that one. Oh, I
I
can't wait to crack them back
That's gonna
open
be
again.
awesome.
Sling
Yep.
some magic.
There, warp charge 7. Roll
Warp
some
charge.
maybe.
Oh man,
Miss those days.
I miss the old psychic days. You'd have a psychic phase that would take like 15 minutes. You'd be like,
Yep.
double six? Oh, D6 models.
Yep.
So good. +2 to cast. Oh man, I love that. You'd have the different model with the Doom Bolt on it because
Yep.
that was the spiky one. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So, Dave, we've talked a lot, but we do have some questions from our Discord. So let's any interesting ones? Oh yeah.
One thing before questions is that I'm going to be in New York weekend after next. I'm going to be playing the Battle for Salvation with Team Obliterati, and I released a video saying I was going to play Deathwatch. And then at the last minute, I thought, you know what, Deathwatch is not good enough. I'm just going to play Ultramarines.
Yeah.
And it came with I didn't come up with an Ultramarines list. I just took Chris's one, and then we had a bit of a chat on the team about it. And then I said, well, wouldn't it be a bit better if like maybe we took something like this? And he was like, that's great. I'm going to play that at Bristol next month as well. So we're just going to play the same list. And man, I've played against Ultramarines a lot, right? Ultramarines has obviously been very popular. And not to talk down about too many people, but there hasn't been a lot of great Ultramarines players. But then when I read the strats and the detachment, Gladius, I'm playing Ultramarines Gladius. You just read that stuff and you're like, this is so good. like, oh yeah, army-wide advance and shoot, army-wide fallback and shoot, army-wide advance and charge. Like, if you compare that to +1 to wound if you disembark from a transport, it's quite a different. But it doesn't have any of that cheap OC chaff and trash, which is the big letdown on it. So yeah, I'm playing the old.
They've had a lot of success though, Dave. We've got to give them that because I think Josh Roberts won loads with Ultramarines. We've also had Brian playing Ultramarines, John Lennon playing Ultramarines, Francois in Canada has been playing Ultramarines. So we've had a good number of top players.
100%. I just mean in my experience, I haven't came across a ton of them, but
it's that Space Marine effect, isn't it?
Yeah, his brains are all spaced out.
You know that, Guardsman.
Yeah. Well, Guard kind of have a direct way of playing against them, which is obviously using your chaff a lot. But so I'll be playing that, and I haven't got any practice games in yet, so I should probably play 1 or 2 games, maybe just 1 or 2. I've got that. So I'll be in New York. If you are in New York, come and say hello. I'll be at BFS with the team, so that'll be a great time as well. But on to some viewer questions we have. At the end of every episode. Well, usually I just post in the Discord saying we're going to do an episode, so you can ask some questions. So I'm going to start right here at the top. Dave is asking, after Ynnari, is Seer Council the answer, or are we confident in finding tech in other detachments? I guess first questions first, Vik. Do you think Ynnari is going to get hit sometime soon?
Yeah, I think Ynnari is going to die.
Okay.
I think.
Oh, okay. On that side of things. Okay. DOA.
I think, I think, well, you never know. Ynnari might still have some
you got a lot of shit last time. You said that orcs weren't dead, but I noticed a lot of comments there, people telling you that orcs were 100% dead. Daka was 100% dead.
They're completely dead, yes. Yeah, definitely. I think the problem was, how do I phrase this correctly? The problem is dead and like where it should have been are 2 different levels. And I think I was trying to say it's kind of okay and where it should have been. But I think orc players really want a competitive shooting detachment. They already have one, so they really want 2 competitive shooting detachments. So what can you do? You can't win with that. So if it had just released at that level, everything would have been fine.
Everything would have been fine. So Ynnari, Seer Council, is that the kind of the direction that we're looking at?
So I don't know so much about specifically Seer Council. I do think Seer Council has a very high chance of being the correct transition point here. But I think particularly these Guardian Warlock units are really good. With a Farseer or Eldrad, 4 Warlocks from the Conclave and the Guardian unit. I think
they do a lot of damage.
A good enough unit to build around here. Seer Council has a lot of incredibly interesting tricks, and the CP economy that you get out of it means it's extremely consistent in singles in terms of scoring. My money is on for myself that Seer Council is going to be the go-to. But I think there's some play in Guardian Battle Host as well,
Okay.
using a very similar archetype of list. I'm personally not very hot on Windrider Host. I'm not
Hmm.
convinced that that's good enough in singles, but it's still probably be decent in teams.
Yep.
Aspect Host is still solid, but still just suffers from the same kind of bad matchups as Ynnari, but everything is a little worse.
Okay. I was going to say, because is there not a way that you could play that Swooping Hawk package? You taking that ideology you just talked about before and applying that to Aspect Host, getting rid of the Fire Dragons. Is there something in there, or?
There's some play in there for sure. Like there's no fallback can do anything in Aspect Host, so Swooping Hawks give you that. But losing lethal intent is a big negative because they're
Right.
probably the prime target for lethal
I
intent
see. Okay,
in the
cool. Yeah.
list. Will Ynnari still be okay? They have a decent suite of stratagems. The sticky on an objective when you die is still very good. We'll have to see where lethal intent goes. So I think Seer Council is my number one pick there, probably. But I think there's going to be a little bit of experimentation with the other stuff. I
Liam was
also,
doing really well with Harlequins on the weekend
yeah,
as well, right?
the Liam effect. Liam will
Yeah,
make anything look good, won't he?
exactly. Come and play Mechanized Assault, Liam. That's really where the skill is, obviously.
Beautiful.
Next question. How important or how much of a priority is it to know other faction abilities, rules, and units when factoring into overall macro strategy? For example, would you put it above or below terrain layout going first or second? Well, there's a lot going on in that question. I'll take this one.
Yeah, definitely.
I think, there's no way of getting around the fact that you do need an encyclopedic knowledge of factions and Warhammer to perform well at tournaments, for example. And a lot of this carries over from edition to edition, right? Elves are not that much different from ninth edition. You know what I mean? Like, you still try and be proactive against them. They still usually trade down, etc., right? Guard is pretty much very similar in those regards as well. Knights are obviously very similar. So there's no getting around the fact that just kind of understanding what armies are trying to achieve is really important. But if you're finding that too much to grasp, I would recommend just bucketing things together, right? Like, look at your opponent's list and be like, it's I played against Ultramarines, right? And in my head, I just said, okay, it's 2 Vindicators, 2 Ballista Dreadnoughts. So that's 4 big things. He's got 4 big things and Gilliman, and then he's got an Inceptor block that's going to hit me once and I can kill it. So, he hasn't got a lot of chaff. So if I put more in reserve, it's going to be able to hit good stuff earlier on, right? So, therefore, put more into reserve, right? So, he's going to be worried about my Vanquishers shooting his Ballistas and Vindicators. So the way I can achieve that better is by putting stuff into reserve and rapid ingressing them outside of 24 so I can move, shoot, and get the first hit there, because his army's quite blocky and slow, right? So, grouping together armies like that is really important, right? Like, if you look at like Vik's and Ynnari list, it's literally the exact opposite, right? Okay, do not put stuff in reserve, right? He's very wide and fast, right? So, okay, is my opponent's list blocky and slow, or is it wide and fast, right? How is it got a lot in reserve or less that it can put in reserve? If you put stuff in reserve, is it going to pressure them to come out, right? Some armies don't really care if you put stuff in reserve, right? And the terrain layout is really like more about how much you bend your list one way or another in the last 300 to 400 points, right? How can you not abuse, but how can you use the terrain to amplify your army to certain extents, right? It's more open, take more shooting. It's more closed, take more transports or more combat, for example, right? So yeah, hopefully that works. Yeah.
Beautiful.
The hardest skill to master, though, right, is the macro strategy, really. Obviously there's lots of skills, but it's where most people go wrong, to be honest. Okay, another question for Vik. Based on theory crafting people have been doing on the server, how do you feel the non-Ynnari detachments compare with one another? All right.
Got the same question.
So what is the second best one?
Okay. I think I'm going to put my money on Seer Council.
Okay,
I'm just going to
so
go put my money where my mouth is. I think Seer Council is the second best detachment and will be the staple best competitive list for singles.
Cool, awesome. And Vik, what is your favorite video game of all time?
Oh, favorite one. I'm not necessarily the best video game, but the one which has stuck with me is Final Fantasy X. I've really enjoyed that game, and it just kind of hit me in all the right spots,
Nice. Yeah.
What about you, Dave?
The Final Fantasy series is epic, of course. Final Fantasy VI. For me, Diablo 2. Just
Diablo 2
nostalgia
classic.
every time I get back to it. Like, I just, Like one of my favorite things to do would just be to get my best mate and just like have a weekend where we just Diablo 2 over, internet connection with each other for the whole weekend, like that's a good weekend.
Remember those kinds of days, Dave. So.
Trust me, man. Harkening back. Oh, times were easier. Okay. I think that, okay. What have you heard played against seems strong? Okay, I have no idea what this question is, but Blaze is asking, what is your bystander perspective on Dark Angels? What have you heard played against them that seems strong? I guess, the take is, what do you think about Dark Angels at the moment?
What do you think about Dark Angels, Dave?
Refer
to the expert.
I've been playing Marines a lot more recently.
There you go.
Dark Angels is an army which people usually play incorrectly. I think Dark Angels is actually quite decent in teams on WTC, probably there. It is an annoying army that I don't think many people ever enjoy playing into. So it's got that role in teams, which I think is good. And I don't think they're in that bad of a spot. To be honest, they haven't really changed that much, and a lot of the meta has changed. So yeah, what about you? Do you think Dark Angels is easy peasy for Ynnari, or?
So I obviously don't understand it intimately. I don't really know the details on it, but my vibe is that maybe there are other options that people take here over Dark Angels if they're really trying to be competitive within Marines. That's probably where Dark Angels sit at the moment. That's not to say that they're bad. It's just that there may be other more viable options. So if you're a diehard Dark Angels player, you're going to have to work a little bit harder probably to get something out of the army. But I think there's enough in there. In terms of like the tanky side or the fast side, because I've seen quite a few of these bike heavy lists, and we obviously have the Terminator heavy bricky lists. So there's a lot of versatility in list design, but it's not necessarily something that I would be overly scared of if I played it at a tournament.
Your movement needs to be very crisp on them. Actually, unironically, Manny Chim is a great Dark Angels player. He was playing that a lot at the end of 9th edition as well. There we go. That's all the questions. Awesome. It's been a great episode. A couple little 5-0s this weekend, and everything is all good. I'm off to New York the weekend after next as well. Going to be playing Marines in my first tournament in a long time. So we'll see how it goes on that GW terrain, mate.
Yep, I'll be painting
Line them up.
Emperor's Children gold trim for the next few years of my life.
Where do you think Emperor's Children are going to come out? How big of a splash do you think Emperor's Children are going to make?
It's going to entirely depend on who plays them. Because I actually think Emperor's Children is not a mid-table bully. I think Emperor's Children, as in, I don't think it's going to dominate the mid-tables at all. And in fact, I think people are really going to struggle to get value out of that army on the mid-tables. But I think on the top tables, it's going to shine.
I think it's going to come out pretty hard and fast, but that's because we've had a big lead time for it as well. We've had the abilities and data sheets and points open for a while now, and I think those Demon Princes are pretty good.
Can't go wrong with the list design now. I think that's pretty solved.
It's solved. Yeah,
it's solved. There's tiny little variations, but it's pretty much all the same. What you can go wrong with is the macro strategy with it, because there's actually not that much stuff that you get in the army. And it's very easy to use it incorrectly, and it's not intuitive when you need to use it. Sometimes it feels wasteful when you use your resources, when actually it's the correct time to do it. And sometimes you shouldn't be sending your thing in for absolutely no gain. And understanding that, I think, is going to be much better understood at the top tables.
So if you don't know how to play it, by the way, if you can ever kill something on turn 1 with your unit that scouts, you should do that. Even if it trades down by 120 points. You then stage your entire army into the middle of the board on turn 2. You leave a Demon Prince in reserve. And then on their turn 2, you rapid ingress and you all in your opponents with your entire army on turn 2. And you focus on charging and tagging every single thing possible, because your army rule is literally fall back and charge. So you don't even have to deal damage when you all in them, per se. If you just get a couple of kill tallies and tag their army and bog it down, you instantly win the game on the spot.
Yeah, you say that, but I'm not convinced it's going to work like that once people get the hang of it.
We'll see. I think that army is very, very, very strong.
I think it's very counterable, personally.
Okay, interesting.
But then I said the same thing about T-Suns. It might just be a factor of me playing the army, so I understand the weaknesses better.
But if you had 3 Mutilith Vortex Beasts, was there really a counter to that?
No, I mean, T-Suns even right now, people still think T-Suns are good. At this moment.
That army's not good.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. Awesome. Great episode. We'll catch you guys up. I'm going to do a deep dive on the mechanized list and show off a couple of tips and tricks and stuff like that, what makes it really powerful. So come on by and check that out. I would really recommend it, especially if you're looking at trying something funky and new. And Vik's done the Ynnari deep dive as well. Probably a masterclass on how to use Swooping Hawks, I'd imagine, right?
How to kill big things with Eldar. That's the focus.
Which is the problem. Exactly. There we go. All right, guys. That's been us, episode 71. Have a good night. Or good evening, good morning, wherever you are. If you're having a walk in Hyde Park on a Sunday, sunny day, then there you go. Enjoy.
Enjoy. See you guys next time by the fireside.